The Dexter you saw on Showtime wasn't the same one Jeff Lindsay created in his original novel, Darkly Dreaming Dexter. On the page, Dexter is colder, darker, and far more unsettling than the character Michael C. Hall brought to life on screen. So why did Showtime change him? And what does this reveal about the Dexter fans never got to see? When Jeff Lindsay released Darkly Dreaming Dexter in 2004, he introduced a brand new type of serial killer character. Dexter Morgan was a blood spatter analyst for Miami Metro by day and a ritualistic vigilante killer by night. But unlike the sympathetic anti-hero audiences later met on Showtime, Lindsay's Dexter was far more alien, with an almost inhuman perspective. Just 2 years later, Showtime adapted the book into a pilot. The premise stayed the same: a killer hiding in plain sight, working within the police force, guided by the Code of Harry. But the execution, that's where the two Dexters begin to drift apart. In the novels, Dexter's inner monologue is chilling. He doesn't just lack empathy, he practically treats emotions as strange puzzles he can't solve. He refers to himself as hollow, mimicking humanity rather than truly feeling it. Even when he describes his sister Deborah, there's an unsettling detachment, as if family bonds are more obligation than love. By contrast, the TV Dexter was crafted to be more humanized. Michael C. Hall's performance injected vulnerability, humor, and even moments of warmth. Viewers could laugh with him, sympathize with his struggles, and in many cases, root for him to escape justice. Showtime wanted audiences to like Dexter, not just fear him. This difference is crucial. The book gave us a predator passing for human. The show gave us a broken man trying to manage his darkness. Two very different experiences. One of the most striking differences between book and show lies in the concept of the dark passenger. In Lindsay's novels, the dark passenger is almost an independent entity. Dexter describes it as something separate, whispering instructions, sometimes even taking control. It often feels supernatural, like a demonic presence riding inside him. But on TV, the dark passenger was stripped down into something more psychological. It became a metaphor for Dexter's compulsion, his trauma, his urges, his need to kill. By grounding it in psychology, Showtime avoided veering into supernatural territory. This single choice changes the entire tone of Dexter's story. In the books, he's sharing his body with something otherworldly. In the series, he's just a man fighting his own fractured psyche. The plot itself also shifted dramatically in the transition from page to screen. In Darkly Dreaming Dexter, Lieutenant LaGuerta dies at the end, something Showtime never allowed. In fact, LaGuerta became one of the show's longest-running characters, playing a central role in Dexter's downfall. Deborah also learns the truth about Dexter much earlier in the novel, creating a dynamic the show kept on ice for years. Showtime stretched that tension for maximum dramatic payoff, while the book delivered it quickly and directly. Even the ice truck killer storyline plays out differently. Brian Moser, Dexter's brother, is chaotic, unpredictable, and far more monstrous in the novel. On TV, he's polished, controlled, and carefully crafted to create emotional tension when his true identity is revealed. Each change reflects the same goal: make Dexter's world more palatable for mainstream audiences. So why did Showtime alter the character so heavily? The reasons are clear. First, broader appeal. A Dexter as cold and inhuman as Lindsay wrote him would be fascinating, but alienating. Viewers might not have stuck around for 8 seasons if they couldn't connect emotionally to the main character. Second, network constraints. Showtime was pushing boundaries, but there's still a difference between a relatable anti-hero and a completely monstrous protagonist. They needed a Dexter who walked the line, dark enough to intrigue, but human enough to root for. And third, Michael C. Hall himself. His interpretation gave Dexter charisma, subtle humor, and layers of humanity the novel rarely allowed. Showtime leaned into that, reshaping the character around Hall's performance. The result was a character who felt less like a monster hiding in plain sight and more like a tragic figure we hoped would survive, even as he committed terrible acts. When you put the two versions side by side, the contrast is striking. In the novels, Dexter is an almost robotic predator. His narration is cold, clinical, often disturbingly funny, in a way that makes readers uncomfortable. He isn't trying to be human, he's simply wearing a mask. On television, Dexter became something else entirely. Still dangerous, still deadly, but relatable. His love for Deborah, his devotion to Harrison, even his friendships at Miami Metro gave him dimensions the books rarely touched. So the question becomes, did fans lose the real Dexter? Or did Showtime's changes give us something even better? Here's the truth. Both versions are valid, and both serve different purposes. The novels capture the pure essence of Dexter as a predator, a nightmare wearing human skin. The show transformed him into a complex anti-hero, someone we could root for despite the darkness. Casual fans may only know the TV version, but the books reveal the harsher, more alien side of Dexter Morgan. In many ways, they remind us that beneath the charm and the voiceover narration, Dexter was never supposed to be entirely human. So now it's your turn. Which Dexter do you prefer? The unsettling monster of the books, or the flawed anti-hero of the series? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more hidden truths about Dexter's world, don't forget to subscribe for the next deep dive. You think you know Deborah Morgan from the TV show, but the Deborah in Jeff Lindsay's novels, she's almost unrecognizable. The differences between book Deb and TV Deb are so shocking that fans who only watched the series never saw the real Deborah Morgan hiding in plain sight. Because in the novels, Deborah is a completely different character. She swears like a sailor, she's impulsive, and her relationship with Dexter takes turns that the show never dared to touch. Her personality, her career, even her emotional role in the story all shifted when Showtime brought her to the screen. The result is that casual fans think they know her, but they don't. So let's pull back the curtain and look at the Deborah Morgan that the show never gave us. And by the end, you'll realize you've only ever seen half of who Deborah really was. In the show, Jennifer Carpenter brought Deborah to life with this mix of toughness and vulnerability. She's foul-mouthed, yes, but she's also endearing, wounded, insecure, but ultimately driven by a desperate need to prove herself. But in Jeff Lindsay's books, Deborah's personality goes to extremes. She's much harsher, less polished, and nowhere near as sympathetic. Book Deborah doesn't just curse, she unleashes a constant stream of rage-filled profanity. She's reckless, brash, and often a liability to herself and others. She's not the vulnerable little sister struggling for approval. She's a ticking time bomb, ready to explode at anyone who stands in her way. That change alone reshaped how audiences saw her. TV Deborah became a fan favorite because she had layers. Under the tough talk, she cared deeply about Dexter, about her career, about being respected in a male-dominated department. Book Deborah, by contrast, often feels like a chaotic storm tearing through scenes. Readers get the sense she's more of a wild card than a character meant to anchor the story. But the personality changes don't stop there. Let's talk about her career path. In the TV show, Deborah's arc is one of ambition and progression. She starts as a vice cop, working the streets, and slowly climbs her way up, eventually earning a spot as detective and even reaching the rank of lieutenant. Her rise through the ranks gives her story a sense of growth, of fighting against the odds and winning. It also allowed the show to use her career as a source of tension. Each promotion brought her closer to Dexter's secret, raising the stakes every season. But in the books, Deborah never gets that clean upward trajectory. Her career is messy, filled with setbacks, clashes with authority, and missed opportunities. She doesn't get the spotlight the way TV Deb does. In fact, her struggles highlight just how much the novels keep her in the background compared to Dexter. She's not the professional climbing the ladder. She's constantly overlooked, constantly fighting, and never truly in control. That choice by Jeff Lindsay gave Book Deborah a raw authenticity, but it also meant she wasn't as central to Dexter's journey. She was there, yes, but she wasn't the heart of the story. Showtime flipped that completely. They took Deborah from the sidelines and turned her into Dexter's emotional anchor, the one person whose opinion truly mattered. And this brings us to the biggest difference of all, her relationship with Dexter. In the books, Deborah respects her brother, but their bond doesn't carry the same intensity as in the show. She never suspects his darkness in the same layered way. Dexter, for her, is a useful ally, a trusted forensic expert, but she's not constantly orbiting around him, not wrestling with suspicion and loyalty in the way TV Deb does. In the show, that relationship becomes the beating heart of the story. Deborah's love, her suspicion, her horror, and her ultimate discovery of Dexter's true nature drive the later seasons. In fact, Some would argue that Deborah's arc is the real tragedy of the series. Even more than Dexter's, she goes from loyal sister to conflicted cop to a woman broken by the weight of her brother's secret. That emotional journey simply doesn't exist in the novels, and this is where the tension really spikes. Because when you compare the two versions of Deborah, it feels like you're looking at two completely different characters. One is a raw, foul-mouthed Storm who stumbles through her career and never becomes central to Dexter's downfall. The other is a layered, vulnerable, emotionally complex sister who becomes the most important relationship in Dexter's life. So which version is the real Deborah Morgan, and why did the show rewrite her so drastically? The truth is, the showrunners needed her. The novels focus almost exclusively on Dexter himself. His voice, his perspective, his darkly comic narration carry the story. But television is different. To sustain 8 seasons of drama, Dexter couldn't exist in a vacuum. He needed a counterpart, someone to humanize him, someone to force him into choices that weren't just about killing. And that's what the show made Deborah into. They transformed her from a side character into the emotional core of the series. But here's the thing, that change didn't just make her more important, it made her more beloved. Fans connected with TV Deborah because she felt real. She was strong but insecure, tough but wounded, a cop who could go toe-to-toe with killers but break down in tears behind closed doors. She represented the cost of living in Dexter's orbit, the human price of being tied to someone with such a dark secret. Book Deborah, by comparison, is almost too chaotic to serve that role. She's entertaining, yes, but she doesn't carry the same weight. She doesn't break your heart the way Jennifer Carpenter's Deborah did. She doesn't feel like the emotional glue holding Dexter's world together, and that's why fans who only watched the show missed something crucial. They never saw the version of Deborah who was rougher, meaner, and more self-destructive. A Deborah who wasn't rewritten to make audiences care, but instead left raw and jagged on the page. So what does that mean for Dexter fans? It means that Deborah Morgan exists in 2 forms, and depending on which version you know, your entire view of the series changes. In the books, she's the reckless sister, always one step behind. In the show, she's the tragic heroine who defines Dexter's humanity. To Deborah, 2 completely different legacies. And maybe that's the shocking truth here, that Showtime didn't just adapt Jeff Lindsay's novels. They rewrote Deborah Morgan into something the author never intended. They turned her into Dexter's anchor, his conscience, his undoing. And for better or worse, that change may be the reason the show lasted as long as it did. So when you think about Deborah in the books versus Deb in the show, remember this. Fans who only watched Dexter never saw the Deborah who was hiding in Jeff Lindsay's pages. And fans who only read the books never experienced the Deborah who broke millions of hearts on TV. 2 Deborahs, 2 worlds, and one big question for you. Which version do you think was better? If you learned something new about Dexter today, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more hidden truths from the world of Dexter. And while you're here, drop a comment and let me know which Deborah Morgan you prefer, the unfiltered chaos of the novels or the tragic heart of the TV series.